96.5 The Fox, Bismarck Mandan's classic rock station with free beer, hot wings every weekday morning, and we are less than a week away from the Steve Miller Band, Tuesday, May 19th at the Bismarck Event Center, and bassist, guitarist, touring band member, songwriter, producer, Kenny Lee Lewis, nice enough to join me on the phone this afternoon. Kenny, what's going on?
Oh, man, just out here in Southern California, a beautiful sunny day, getting ready to get on the plane tomorrow and head out to Memphis and start our little, national summer tour, bringing, the Steve Miller catalog to your town.
Now, let's talk about when you joined up with the Steve Miller Band. It was back in 1982. Kind of after they had really had a lot of big success. What was it like hooking up with a band that they had a greatest hits album in the 70s?
Well, the drummer that had played on all of those hits, Gary Malaber, he and I had a band at the time called Gerard McMahon and Kid Lightning, and we were actually Kid Lightning, him and I, and a guy named John Massaro, and we were doing a lot of the writing with this guy Gerard, and we weren't really digging the way that the business was going down, so me and Gary and John decided to start our own band called Robbie Ubop, and we were in the studio recording, and we had just mixed about 8 mixes that we were going to start shopping around. And one day we were just sitting there, and Steve Miller called up, and he asked Gary if he had any material, because he had to deliver an album in a couple months to Capitol, and he was just kind of dry for material. And so we gave him all 8 of our mixes, thinking he might, take a song or 2. He ended up taking them all, and he transferred the 80-8 masters onto 24-track. We went down to Capitol Records, and we made the Abracadabra album in about 2 months, and that was in the winter of 1981.
What was it like joining up with a band that really already had all this recognition? Steve Miller Band had the name recognition, and then all of a sudden, you 3 guys kind of leap in, and you're now a part of this.
Well, Gary had already been in the band, and he had done all the touring with Steve in the heyday, so he was sort of our gateway to come into the Steve Miller Band. I didn't know that I'd be joining the band. At the time, I was a studio musician, and I was doing very well in town. And, one day Steve called me up personally and just said, hey, I really dig your tunes. I love the way you play guitar and bass on these demos, and you're already on the album, because he just transferred everything, and so I was already on the record, just as a writer and as a player, And he just said, why don't you just come out on the road with us? And I went, okay, well, let me think about it. And I did the math and talked to my fiance at the time, and she said, yeah, why don't you go out, So, because, I had a couple record deals prior to that, and they'd never done anything. And my goal was to go out and promote my own material, and this was a way to do it. And what better way than to have the great voice of Steve Miller singing your songs? I mean, what's not to love?
And you had mentioned before that you kind of helped write, you guys did write the tune Abracadabra, which was a bit of a departure for the Steve Miller Band. It's a different sound than what people were used to. What kind of led the band in that direction? Was it your songwriting that you brought to Steve that kind of took things that way?
Yeah, it was just, it was because we were going for our own deal, and we had already sung our own lead vocals on it, and Steve just replaced those. It was kind of like he was just taking our material and putting his signature on it, which really made it great. And like I said, it was pretty much a band project. So the Robbie Ubop project basically, became the Steve Miller Band, because we all 3 of us went out on the road with Steve that spring. We went to Europe first, actually, in 1982, because that was the interesting thing. We released the album. We didn't have a single. We didn't have any push from the label. And then all of a sudden we found out that he had a deal in Europe with Polygram. And Polygram was the one that made Abracadabra #1 over in Europe, and we toured there first. And then, of course, when it went #1 in Europe, U.S. usually follows European trends, as they were in the 80s, and it became #1 here, too.
So you've spent over 30 years out on the road with the Steve Miller Band. What would you say has been your favorite memory of playing with the band?
Oh, I would say probably doing Les Paul's birthday, a 90th birthday at the Carnegie Hall, with a bunch of other artists, and that was just such an incredible moment for me. And of course, my father being a swing nut all his life and owning the Betty Goodman album and recorded live in Carnegie Hall and all that stuff. I mean, I was a child growing up thinking that was the ultimate gig. Of course, when I got there and I saw the venue and I saw the attitudes of the union guys backstage and everything, it wasn't as romantic as I thought it might have been, but it was really a great historic moment and a milestone and a real bucket list thing for me.
Now, outside of performing with the Steve Miller Band, you've also performed or recorded with the likes of Meatloaf and Jay Leno, Warren Hayes, Tim McGraw, Pat Benatar, Neil Giraldo, countless others. Outside of the Steve Miller Band, who's been your favorite to work with?
Oh, well, of course, it's Steve. I saw Steve when I was 13 years old, and I just said, God, I really dig where this guy's coming from. I think I'd like to work with him someday. Of course, when we got the call from Steve for the material, I had completely forgotten about that, and it wasn't but years later I was sitting there going, oh yeah, that's right. That night I said I wanted to do this, and so it was kind of refrigerator magnet sort of thing. But yeah, working with Steve and his his great talent, his voice, his production abilities to select material and the way he layers it, and of course the mentoring he got from Les Paul, being such a techie and all that, really gave him an edge over a lot of the other artists, and it was a great experience. But of course, working with B.B. King didn't suck, and I did Eddie Money records and a lot of other things, and they all were fun. But Steve's the only one I've really toured extensively with. So as a touring act, obviously playing with him is great. But we've had so many other artists sit in with us over the years. It's almost like we've had another 50 artists that were my icons as well that I got to play with just because they were sitting in with us.
What about the strangest person you've worked with? I mean, when I went to your website and was checking everything out, you have this laundry list of people, but seeing a name like Jay Leno on there and stuff like that, who's the oddest person that people would say, wow, he's worked with them?
Oh, geez. Well, I could say as far as an artist goes that would be known or an unknown artist. It's pretty funny. It's a pretty funny question. I would say, an interesting character that I worked with was Swamp Dogg. He was kind of an R&B artist back in the 60s and 70s, and became quite popular with the hippies out here on the West Coast. And we did a whole little tour in California. And in fact, right around the time, just before I joined Steve, I did a little tour up in Northern California with him, and that was really interesting. Going out with a guy named Swamp Dogg. If you've ever seen his album covers, they're just really outrageous. And he was kind of like Screamin' Jay Hawkins, but different. But just really interesting artist that people might remember. I would think of a household name, interesting artist. That was I can't. I would have to think about it. I don't want to waste your time. But yeah, I've done a lot of interesting things. I mean, I can even tell you that I played with my own band once at the LA Zoo, and it was for a kind of an interesting night when they were trying to track people more to the zoo, so they were putting bands like all over at sundown, and we were set up in front of the gorilla habitat, and nobody showed up, and we ended up just playing for the gorillas, which was really interesting.
That's one of those stories that for years and years, outside of all the great stuff that ever happens, that's one story you're never, ever going to forget.
Playing lead guitar and watching the gorillas get all freaked out. It was great.
Joined on the phone by Kenny Lee Lewis will be in town Tuesday, May 19th with the Steve Miller Band. And as I was researching the interview and kind of learning more about you and your career, I kind of noticed that you don't just stick to one genre of music. I mean, you just mentioned performing with Swamp Dogg, but you've got blues albums. You've done a lot of different things. What if you had to choose one genre of music to play for the rest of your days, what do you think it would be?
Well, I would say it's a combination. I have a band out here on the West Coast called Barflies that we do, and it's kind of we take classic rock and we kind of turn it upside down and turn it into different feels and arrangements, and we kind of do it more acoustically. So I'd say it's a cross between like jazz and classic rock. And then doing it more like on acoustic instruments, acoustic guitars, mandolins, Django Reinhardt style, hot jazz, Paris, 1930s. I really like that era because, you don't have to depend on like effects and distortion and loud stacks and everything to get your artistry across. And plus, it's real honest, and you have to know what you're doing. You have to be able to play that music. So that's a challenge for me, and that's something that I really enjoy. So I would say something between classic rock and jazz and a combination of them.
How important is it for you when you're not out on the road with the Steve Miller Band to be able to do your own thing, like the Barflies and some of the other stuff you've done?
Well, I mean, we only tour about 60 dates a year, 65 maybe tops. So, we're out for about 150 days a year, so there's a lot of time. And I'm producing acts. Last night I was mixing artists and doing contracts and moving stuff, and it's, I'm always doing something in the music business, and if not doing that, I'm out fishing. So, it's just a wonderful life. I've been really blessed, and playing with the Steve Miller Band has just been, an incredible journey for me. And, when we go out and play, it's just so amazing to watch the people's reactions and everything, and to feel that electricity. Yes, we play the same songs a lot, and we get that question a lot, but it really doesn't matter because we're just a delivery system at that point, and it's really about the fans and their feelings and really having a great time. And to be a part of that as just a delivery system is an honor, and it's a gift. and we're very grateful.
I was going to ask, coming up on Tuesday, what should people expect if they've never seen the Steve Miller Band live and they're going to see them this Tuesday, May 19th at the Bismarck Events Center? What can they expect?
They expect to go like, oh, I know that song, but I never knew this band did it. And like, wow, and they did that one too? Oh, man, I love that song. It's like a lot of people don't remember the name of the band, but they remember the songs. And that's sort of a testament for the artist because in this case, the art precedes the band. They're really there to just experience the whole musical catalog and legacy Steve has laid out. And that's really a great testament. They're not coming there to see him do some silly thing on stage. They're there to hear him play, mature, great musical arrangements with great harmonies, mixed well. It's not going to be too loud, but it's going to be loud enough to rock. It's just a great show. We got a great sound, and it's just a part of American history and Americana, and it's almost like a pastime, like baseball or something. And so, we bring it to your town every summer, and and the fans will have a great time.
And people have to make sure they get there early because you have this great young guitar player named Matthew Curry that opens up the show.
Absolutely, he's a great young hope for all of us, to come forward and step into the shoes of other people that have come before him, like Stevie Ray and Johnny Lang and all these people. He's a young kid. I don't even know if he's 20 yet, and but he's just fantastic, and can really play. Got a great mature R&B voice, and a great band, and everybody will enjoy Matthew Curry.
Kenny Lee Lewis going to be in town on Tuesday, May 19th with the Steve Miller Band. And Kenny mentioned before, I was doing some research, getting ready for the interview, and as I was flipping through Twitter, I saw that you did kind of a parody song after this year's Super Bowl called Shoulda Gave It to Marshawn. I want to know, obviously you had a reaction to what happened during the game, but as you're sitting on your couch, you're watching the Super Bowl, you see them not hand it off. What did you do?
Well, I immediately turned off the TV, and because I own a recording studio, I just said, I got to do something with it. And so that's when I went in and I just started saying, he should have gave it to Marshawn. He should have gave it to Marshawn. Da-da-da-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. It had a beat to it, the phrase I was saying. I went like, wait a minute, it sounds kind of like Little Sister. It sounded like Little Sister by Elvis, and so I just went and got myself a karaoke track of Little Sister, and I just did a parody on it and put it on YouTube with some shots from the game, and I just had to get it off my chest because it was just like I was just going crazy. It reminded me because I used to play football. It reminded me of a game we lost when I was playing football in high school. It was very similar, raining. 1 yard line, the coach calls a pass play in this muck and mire when we should have just run it in. And it affected me because I totally related to it personally. So I just threw it together. It was fun. It got about 1,000 hits, and then, of course, it was yesterday's news after 48 hours.
But it is still out there. You can go check it out. Should have gave it to Marshawn, courtesy of Kenny Lee Lewis. I'll tell you what, after researching you and finding out all the people you've worked with, I'm even more excited for Tuesday's show at the Bismarck Events Center. Tickets are on sale right now. Ticketmaster.com, jpresents.com by phone, or the Bismarck Events Center box office. The Steve Miller Band in town with special guest Matthew Curry. Kenny Lee Lewis, thank you so much for taking the time to call in.
Oh, my pleasure, and I hope to see you there.